The Silverlake notoriously bombed at Cannes in 2018, had its planned wide theatrical release pushed back a couple of times, and then was finally dumped straight to VOD. It's a shame, but also, yeah, I get it. The film is long and weird and frequently a bit too obtuse for its own good, but it's also incredibly stylish and beguiling, with some seriously memorable visuals from director David Robert Mitchell, not to mention Disaster Piece's evocative Bernard Herrmann-esque score. I have a lot of respect for a movie that takes a bunch of really big swings, even if they don't all connect, especially when it's as interesting as this one. At its best, Under the Silver Lake is hypnotic and engaging in a way that few movies are. The Safdie brothers have done something special with Uncut Gems. Their direction brings the film an almost absurd level of tension, which pretty much doesn't let up for the entire running time. No small feat, considering that the movie runs at a lengthy 135 minutes. It also looks great, with Darius Khanji's gritty but abundantly cinematic widescreen cinematography suiting the material perfectly. A large chunk of the film is shot in tight close-ups, a choice which works quite well to underline its almost claustrophobic intensity. And of course, you have to mention Daniel Lopatin's amazing, ominous score, which has a synth-heavy 80s vibe and a pulsing, sinister energy that brings the film a lot of its driving tension. But ultimately, it's Adam Sandler's impressive performance that makes Uncut Gems feel like more than just an exercise in style and intensity. He brings a lot of depth to a character who otherwise could have come off as one note. The character is a bit of a sleazebag, but he's also charming, a fine line that Sandler walks expertly. The Wolf's Call is the prototypical Netflix dump film. It's great, but because Netflix unceremoniously plopped it onto their service without a whiff of promotion, I'd be willing to bet good money that you haven't heard of it. And that's a damn shame, because it's a crackerjack sub-movie. This is actually director Abel Lanzak's first film. A seriously impressive feat considering how expertly he's able to crank up the tension throughout the movie. It's surprisingly riveting in parts. It also manages to distinguish itself from other similar sub-movies by focusing on the officer whose job is to detect danger by sound alone, a conceit that leads to some seriously tense scenes. The stakes of this movie eventually become almost comically overblown, but it always feels earned. More importantly, the film does a great job of making us care about the fates of the men on the dueling submarines. Her smell can sometimes feel like an audio-visual assault, but in all the best ways. Featuring a behind-the-scenes look at a drug and alcohol-addled rock star, it's centered by an absolutely amazing performance from Elizabeth Moss, who does a great job of portraying the character's drug-fueled mania without ever veering into full-out caricature. But really, a lot of why the film works as well as it does is down to director Alex Ross Perry. His enveloping style, which consists mostly of frenetic close-ups accompanied by a hypnotically odd sound design, puts you squarely in the strung-out rocker's head, and it's abundantly compelling. Without giving too much away, the film changes radically in its second half, and it's a shift in tone that both Perry and Moss pull off beautifully. Kudos to James Gray, who turns Ad Astra, starring Brad Pitt as an astronaut who embarks on a journey into space to find his missing father, into something far slower and weirder than you'd expect based on that seemingly blockbuster-friendly description. It's easily Gray's best film since We Own the Night. If nothing else, it's absolutely beautiful. Gray's style is as compelling as ever, and Hoyt van Hoytema, who also shot Interstellar, has clearly mastered how to make space look stunning. Ultimately, though, the film works as well as it does thanks to Brad Pitt, whose dark, damaged astronaut is always compelling, and who gives another amazing performance hot on the heels of his career best work in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's also remarkably tense in spots, and despite its overall art house sensibilities, is way more action-packed than you'd think, with a moon rover chase with space pirates being a clear highlight. I mean, it's another John Wick movie, it's great, what do you want me to say about it? While the second installment is the best of the three, I think it's safe to say that very few trilogies have managed to maintain a delightfully high level of quality like this one. Some of the action in the first half of this movie is as good as anything I've ever seen, and while the second half can't quite compare, it's still consistently exciting all the way through. Watching Keanu Reeves punch, kick, stab, and shoot his way through an army of goons is as ridiculously compelling as ever, and director Chad Stahelski stages it all like an absolute pro. The man knows exactly how to choreograph, shoot, and edit an amazing action set piece, a skill that's all too rare among contemporary action directors. About a man who struggles to survive in the most unforgiving terrain possible, Arctic is a seriously well-made and flat-out riveting film. It's basically a one-man show. It's all Mads Mikkelsen all the time, with almost zero dialogue, and it's absolutely captivating. Mikkelsen is more than up to the task, giving a superb performance that easily ranks among his best. It's actually kind of astounding how good he is here, considering that he has maybe a dozen lines of dialogue at most. Watching him use his survival skills to stay alive, and then to take a perilous journey to safety is almost absurdly compelling. It helps that first-time director Joe Penna crafts a film with an enviable level of skill. His unfussy direction does an absolutely perfect job of conveying this wordless story and cranking up the tension as things get more and more dangerous for the main character. It's a fantastic film. I haven't been particularly high on any of the Daniel Craig Bond movies, so to me, 1917 is easily Sam Mendes' best film since Road to Perdition. His style here is absolutely jaw-dropping. The whole movie is shot to look like one long take, a choice that gives the film a uniquely visceral energy and makes it feel quite unlike any other war movie. It would be easy to take a conceit like that and wind up with something that feels gimmicky or forced, but that's absolutely never the case here. The long take always feels like the best way to tell this particular story, and only serves to heighten the film's sense of tension and urgency. Of course, having the legendary Roger Deakins behind the camera doesn't hurt. The film basically plays out like a cross between a war movie and a thriller, with an edge-of-your-seat intensity that's an absolute joy to behold. It's also very well acted, with George McKay in particular doing a really great job. He brings an impressive amount of depth to a role that could have easily been one-note frantic and exhausted. Well, it's official. After making an amazing debut with The Witch, it's safe to say that Robert Eggers is the real deal. The Lighthouse, about a couple of lighthouse keepers in the 1800s who slowly drive each other insane, is impeccably made. The film is as much about its mesmerizing sense of style as anything else, and oh man, that's style. Jaron Bleshke's amazingly moody black and white cinematography, shot in a striking, almost square aspect ratio, is a thing to behold, recalling the films of the 20s and 30s in all the best ways. The movie always looks and sounds amazing, with Mark Corvin's sinister, delightfully oppressive score only adding to how tense and involving the movie always is. And Eggers directs the hell out of it, doing a phenomenal job of getting us into the characters' heads as they lose their minds. It's an odd film. The old-timey dialogue is often impenetrable, it's all about mood and tone over plot or character, and Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are pretty much always cranked up to 11. But then, the whole movie is pretty much always cranked up to 11, and it absolutely, positively works. It's not a horror movie in the traditional sense, but Eggers does a phenomenal job of ramping up the tension and the unease as it becomes more and more clear that things cannot possibly end well for these two characters. I'm a pretty big Quentin Tarantino fan, and this is easily one of his best films, so yeah, it's good. It's really good. It's considerably less plot-heavy than Tarantino's last few movies. It's more about its low-key charm than moving any kind of plot forward, but it never feels completely aimless. Tarantino paces the movie like a pro. The Manson family is always hanging out on the fringes, giving the otherwise laid-back film a bit more urgency than it would otherwise have. Ultimately, though, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is mostly concerned with hanging out with its charming characters. A delightful proposition, particularly when you've got both Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio at their movie star best. Tarantino's eye for visuals is as sparkling as ever, and the film's recreation of 1969 Hollywood is consistently stunning. Tarantino has always been a director who's all about winking and nodding to the films he loves. This is his most overt love letter to the magic of Hollywood, and it's a very hard film not to be thoroughly enchanted by. And now, without comment, here's my bottom 10, set to the theme song to the 90s Saved by the Bell knockoff, California Dreams.
Surf dudes with attitudes, kinda groovy, laid back moves, sky above, sand below, good vibrations, feeling mellow, won't give it up, California dreams.